Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
How's it going, gentlemen? Welcome to yet another episode of the Mountaintop Podcast. I am your host, Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on just about every major social media platform. The website is mountaintoppodcast.com, and our thriving Facebook group is the Mountaintop Summit. With me today is a returning guest. She's actually been on this show once before, but it was almost 5 years ago. I can't believe time has flown that much, because she's a terrific guest. She's a lot of fun, and you guys love her Russian accent, although she's now been here in the U.S. of A., more specifically New York City, for over 20 years now. She's a dating coach mostly for women. She's very smart. She knows her stuff. And importantly for you guys, she is very pro-guy. She just loves us as guys. She's got a great husband. Her and her husband, in fact, have a relationship that's about as healthy as the one I have with Emily, which means they're doing something right for sure. Polina Solda from New York City, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Scott. It's such a pleasure and joy to be back. I look forward to this conversation.
Well, the topic is a really good one, and I was looking through the catalog of shows we've done in the past, Polina, and I've never seen this title or anything really close to it. How to be Mr. Right. And, you know, you do lots of online events and summits and so forth for women on the topic of how to find Mr. Right. And I know Emily talks about it with women as well. But I think a lot of times the term Mr. Right is really reserved for women's dating advice because it just kind of doesn't resonate with men. Although I actually looked at David D'Angelo's catalog of dating advice, which have been off the market since earlier this year. But, you know, at one time he was basically the 900-pound gorilla in the men's dating advice space. And he had a program called How to Be Mr. Right. So how dare me not have a podcast on the subject or trying to avoid this phraseology whatsoever, because I think a lot of guys know what it means to be Mr. Right, even if it's kind of a feminine term. And however we phrase it, we certainly want to be that guy for the right woman. That's what I call deserving what you want. So why don't you tell us a little bit, Polina, about what your rendition of Mr. Right is and why that's such a beloved phrase to women. It kind of just conjures up a lot in a woman's imagination, doesn't it?
Yes, and I'm going to offer a perspective which will destroy the biggest myth out there in the dating advice industry. And that myth is that there is this Mr. Right person. Because what I believe that there isn't the Mr. Right, but there is a person, there's a man, or you as a man decide that this is the right person for you, or you are the right person for your partner. And once you make that decision and you decide it, and you go all in, then everything, your whole life changes. You create so much space. There's so many opportunities that open up for you. You elevate your whole life to the next level now that you're in that relationship. So this whole idea about being Mr. Right, you get to decide that I am the right person. I want to be with this woman. I want to spend the rest of my life with this partner. And once you made that decision, the power is in a decision.
Well, that's really an interesting perspective. Now, going along with that, I'm guessing, you know, and maybe this is a dangerous assumption, but I'm guessing that when you're saying that there is no Mr. Right, there's not one unique soulmate out there for you in the universe, or that this is about perfection.
Correct. This
right?
is exactly the biggest myth, that there is this one unique special person out there and you just have to find them.
Or that person's perfect.
Right. Or they're perfect. And you can spend a lot of time searching, doing a lot of dating activities and staying busy dating and remain single because of it. There isn't this one person. I use a system of personality typing called Enneagram style, which is psychology backed. It's based on Carl Jung's psychological types. So it's completely legitimate. It's the most effective way to understand the differences between people that are inherent strengths and inherent attractive qualities that we have. That also, the other side of that is certain weaknesses. When you know, and chances are everyone already knows that certain people are very logical and they're less emotional and vice versa. Some people are very creative. Some people are very driven and very powerful and forceful. And when you understand that there are always different personality types, no one is all in one. This person just does not exist. So if you're looking for somebody who is this Mr. Perfect, chances are it's going to take you a very long time to find him because he doesn't exist or she doesn't exist.
You know, one of the things you mentioned is this idea of certain people being logical and certain people being emotional. Many people, many outlets of dating advice, many even in the psychotherapy field would say that, oh, women are emotional and men are logical. What do you have to say about that?
So it depends on the personality type. When it comes to energies, there's feminine and masculine energies. There are 4 main personality types. And in your style, it's easy to remember them because they are labeled as 4 cardinal points: north, east, south, and west. And even their qualities and strengths, if you think about geography, makes sense. North is going to be very rational, structural, logical, non-emotional. East, think about East in the world. It's intuitive, wisdom, creativity, ideas. South is all about fun, comfort, food, pleasure, relationships, just having a good time. And West is power, ambition, drive, next level, impact, being number one and the best. And West and North are masculine energies. East and South are feminine. We are men and women of these different personality types. Each of us has all of us 4 energies, but in very different proportions. And each of us is going to have a main 2 that are going to be the strongest. So if it's a man who is northwest, he's going to be very, very masculine. Or it could be a woman born in that personality type, very, very strong woman.
Or it could be Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's child, their love child.
So it depends.
Literally.
It depends on whatever dominant energies that you're born with, not necessarily your gender. It could be man on very feminine energies, or it could be a woman in very masculine energies. And what matters the most is choosing a most compatible partner who has different yet complementary energies, so that in your relationship as a couple, you really become one. You complete all of those.
That's really impressive, Polina. Did you develop that modality?
No. This system was developed a few decades ago in Russia. It's used across all sectors, including government and business. So it's completely legit. And I am the first person in the English-speaking world to apply it in dating and search for the right person, the person that you decide is right for you, based on those compatibility principles.
You know, it's interesting that you had mentioned that this was familiar to the Russian-speaking world, but you're the first one ever to introduce it to the English-speaking world. Because I think people who are English speakers see Russians as having a very unique view on the world. A lot of times, at least the stereotype is that Russians are a little more blunt, perhaps a little more dark, a little more straightforward, less emotional when they talk to you. Like, for example, someone who has emigrated from Russia to the United States may see someone in the United States doing something that's perhaps foolish, and they may go, "Why are you being so stupid? That's never going to end well. You should do something completely different." And that's really seen as really rude by Americans. But people in Russia are like that with each other all the time and grateful to each other for it. You know? So does that have something to do with it, or is it simply because the language is so different and even the written language is so different? Why do you think it took so long to migrate over here? Because it makes perfect sense.
I think the differences come from the culture, and specifically the former Soviet Union, understanding that collective dominated over or took precedence over individual. What's interesting about Año style, the system that I use, is that ironically, it was developed in the country that did not recognize psychology. It wasn't even a thing because everyone was working towards this one clear goal, which was building communism. And the Soviet Union, the communist government, the regime, paid this couple who created the system and funded their research. They had a laboratory of over 150 scientists, and they had access to everything from Eric Berne transactional analysis to classical psychology, Carl Jung's, to neurolinguistic programming. All of the American research, all of the work that was done by American psychologists, they connected the dots. They had to put it together in order to determine exactly specific personality type that could deliver nuclear weapons to this territory in Baikonur. And the government wanted to know exactly what personality type, what kind of people can be trusted to do this work that potentially could just blow up the whole place. And that is how this system was created. It was for political reasons. It was for security, national security reasons. And they came up with a very simple, very clear system where specific types, that is a North type, very logical, very consistent, who will follow all the rules, who will do everything by the book. There is a certain body type, there is a certain way how that person thinks. So, and for every personality type, they determined exactly there are certain traits, how this person will dress, how they communicate. For each type, how they're going to behave in stressful situations, how they're going to make decisions. And it's extremely objective, simple, and accurate. So when it comes to dating, the benefit of learning the system and using it yourself, which anyone can learn in just a few hours, is to be able to look at the person who's sitting right in front of you on your first date. Ask them just a few targeted questions. Use the criteria that I mentioned, like the body type, like the communication style, and so on. Their personal style, what they do for a living, all of that is driven by our strengths. When we naturally align with our type, when we are living our purpose, we're pretty much doing what is easiest, most natural for us to do, then you can know right away so much about that person. You can know about their core values, motivations, strengths, weaknesses, just by having a simple conversation.
And what follows logically from all of that, Polina, is the simple truth that the person who may be Mr. Right for a certain woman might be Mr. Wrong for a whole host of different women.
100%. Exactly. That is why there is no such a thing. I love that you brought it up, because there is no such a thing as a right or wrong person unless you know exactly who you are, right? So that is how you decide who is right for you. You know your type. For example, I'm a West type. I'm very strong. I'm direct. And it has nothing to do with me being from Russia, even though
it does so.
even though maybe part of it. But
why would you say that, Polina? That's so silly. Of course, it's because you're from Russia.
So my husband.
See, I can play your own game with you.
So my husband is very he's different yet complementary to me. In other words, he's got that easygoing, flexible ability to just completely switch and let go. And we complement each other in this way. He brings the fun and excitement into our relationship. I am more about making things happen. He's got an idea. I will make sure that idea gets executed and it's done and it happens. So we are just a great team together. But when I was single and dating and I tried to date the same type, very ambitious, very strong, dominant man, it just doesn't work because we're too similar. What happened? There was a power struggle, confrontation, and even though everyone will tell you, well, you want this type of man who is dominant, who is a leader, who is a masculine energy, not unless you are. So we don't want somebody who's just like us. We already have a relationship with ourselves, right? We want somebody who is different and complementary. And I see, by the way, Scott, you and Emily, you are dual partners. You're going to be together for the rest of your life. You're just perfect for each other.
I definitely agree with everything you just said, especially that last part. And I also want to make clear, you emigrated from Russia to the United States for good reason. I mean, you want to be here. So I'm poking fun at you. But I know you're good nature. You and I are friends. But I do have a question that's sort of related that I'm dying to ask you based on what you just presented, because I think it's oddly relevant. Now, you came to the United States to live 20 years ago. You were a full-grown woman when that happened. Did it drive you nuts when you found out the extent to which American men fetishize Russian women, blonde women with cute accents from Russia? Did that drive you nuts, or did you revel in it?
I love to break stereotypes. My husband is a successful lawyer, and my dream, and he's older than I, and my dream, and that is where I'm going. Remember, West is next level, make things happen, is to semi-retire my husband so he can play golf. And when we go to parties and we make our big moves to places, when we move out of New York City to other places and we have multiple homes, to tell at the parties that I retired my husband and he's playing golf and I'm running my business. That is all I'm going to say about the stereotype of Russian women.
Well, I'm not sure how many broken stereotypes there were in that last series of statements, but, I'll roll with it. That sounds good.
I like the vision of a younger Russian wife who retired her American husband.
Yeah, I don't know if my wife's going to retire me. I think we're probably going to retire each other somewhere along the way here. But yeah, we're definitely in it for the long haul, like you and your husband are.
Right.
A related question. I think a lot of guys really do see this as a big monolith. Guys see this as really being a black and white issue. I've got to be tall, dark, handsome, rich, probably famous, or women aren't going to want me. I can't possibly be Mr. Right for any woman because I'm not any of those things, let alone all of them. And then here you come along and talk, frankly, well, more like we do around here, which is, hey, if you know who the hell you are, if you have your identity in place, then you will have a much better handle on the kind of woman you're going to be most fundamentally compatible with. She's going to be one of you. She's going to be on your team. You guys will be, the two of you will be more likely to what I call get each other. You'll think the same way. You'll have many of the same values. But indeed, Polina, a lot of guys don't even know who the hell they are. Their identities are still kind of in flux, especially younger guys. But I'm amazed by how many men who are older haven't figured out whether they have good character or bad character yet, because they still have no character. They're still going along with whatever the flow is, and whatever they're told to believe, they fall in line with it. But indeed, if you know the kind of person you are and what your gifts are, what your proclivities are, what your personality type is, et cetera, then it just really stands to reason that someone who is like you in terms of the values you have and that you share, and someone who is compatible with you in terms of what they bring to the table, the idea of you complete me, only in a positive way instead of a needy way. It all starts to come together based on what you're talking about, right? I mean, there are ways where men and women are compatible because of those values, but there are ways that we complete each other and provide help to each other in getting through life together by kind of building the whole package as a duo. Right?
Right. So what matters is how do you know when you are on the path, on your path? And how do you know when you met a person, even without knowing anything about in your style, that it could be your dual partner? Is the way to know, the litmus test is that it's easy. Think about anything that you do professionally that is easy. North type of man, he's going to work in the system. His mission is to keep a system. What does it mean? Anyone in a uniform, anyone who works for a system, whether it's a police force or firefighters or pilots or doctors. And when it comes to East type, when you are so creative, you have so many ideas. It's like being a freelancer, doing something where your freedom is your biggest value. Then south. So all about relationships, connecting people, helping people, whether it's being a coach, a salesperson, a psychologist, a comedian. And of course, west, the west type, how do you make impact wherever you build a business with a chain of stores across the world, or you change how online shopping is done? What matters the most, and this is exactly what I teach my clients, is that it's not about the so-called level of success. It's not about even how much money somebody makes. It doesn't even matter if I, as a woman, I have an unlimited potential with my business. My husband is a lawyer. It's completely different. It's not about it. But as long as you are on a path of mastery where it's aligned, you do what you meant to do. If you always wanted the order when you were a little boy and you did your homework and you made your bed and now you're Navy SEAL and you want the order in the world, you are living your purpose. You are following your path of mastery. If you are creative and you're an artist or you make music, and that is how you bring something new into the world, and that is your mission, then you follow your path of mastery. And so it goes for every type. And what's really important is when you meet the right type of woman, she's going to be different from you. She's going to be complementary to you. It's easy. That is how you know. It's just easy to be together. You both can be 100% yourselves. You don't need to change yourselves because you are coming together, different and complementary. You complete that search. You together become the one when you truly aligned in your personality types, in your values, in your frequency, and on every level. And you're having fun, of course. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's just beautifully said. You know, Polina, you're probably aware that Emily and I get a lot of heat from our fellow colleagues in the dating advice world for saying out loud. I mean, we say this in our out loud voice publicly, that relationships shouldn't be work.
Absolutely.
And you're one of the few who I think has not only come along who agrees with that, but who articulates it at least equally as beautifully as we do. You just said it all. I mean, someone comes along and it's just easy. You don't have to work to get along with each other. You don't have to struggle to understand each other or to communicate. You just get each other. And that doesn't mean that life's problems don't come along. It doesn't mean you live this charmed life where nothing bad ever happens to you. But at least you're together and get to support each other together, no matter what life throws at you as a team. And I think you captured that extremely well. The follow-up question has to be, in your system, Polina, the one that you espouse here, north, south, east, and west, what is the differentiator between areas where we should be similar as men and women in relational partnership, as opposed to those different kinds of areas where we are different and complete each other?
So it's very, very simple. Again, I love the simplicity of, and my tagline that I tell my clients, if it's right, it's easy. Right away from a get-go. If it's right, it's easy. There's no red flags. There's no anxiety. There's no uncertainty.
Okay, well, let me drill down on my question a little bit. In other words, there are certain areas where we're going to be compatible because we're similar, and other areas where we're compatible because we're different. There's always been this age-old debate as to whether likes or opposites attract, and I'm going to go on record as being in apparent agreement with you in saying, well, it depends. It's both. Okay. But I would wonder which areas you would see as needing to be similar in order for a couple to have this easygoing relationship, as opposed to areas where they need to be different. Let me give you a couple examples I might come up with. I definitely think it's a lot easier for couples if they vote the same way and they pray to the same God, or they have a similar lockstep view on how to raise children or how to save versus spend money. Differences may be I'm the talker and my wife is the one who handles money and numbers, right? I'm the one who gets us down to business and makes sure we stay on track. And my wife is the one who reminds everybody that, sometimes we got to relax, let our hair down and play a little. Am I onto something there?
Yes.
Okay. What other examples would you add to that list?
Fundamental differences in terms of values, and there are types that are different and not complementary, and there are types that are different and are complementary. When it comes to values, when it comes to agreements, when it comes to relationship of time. For example, and that is how powerful and that it serves my clients when you use it in dating. If a woman is a North type, she wants a man who is going to ask her out a week in advance. He will prioritize it. He will follow through. He will confirm with her, and he will not change the plans. He will also show up on time. If she's a North type of woman, because for her, being a system and having her schedule done and everything be predictable is really important. Her mission is to keep a system. Her complementary dual partner type is a South. A South type of man values relationships. His mission is to love. He's going to be there. He's going to be there on time because of the ethics of relationships. He has a different view. It's about relationships for him. But he is going to be aligned with how she sees the world. Now, if she's trying to make plans with an East type of man, which is my dual partner, he might have an idea on that day that he just doesn't want to go on that date. He wants to do something else with somebody else. That is how his mind works. He's full of ideas. He doesn't know what's going to happen next. He's very flexible, which can be a strength. But when he texts that woman and says, listen, something came up, let's reschedule, it's already a problem. They're already having an issue. If it happens with somebody like me, which it happened with my husband, and I have other things that I'm focusing on and other priorities, and I have options, it's not a problem for me. And I will say, okay, fine. We can totally reschedule. So it works. He can be himself. He can change his mind. In our relationship, we're happily together for 14 years. And I tell my husband, there's no guarantees. We're happy together now. We can recommit to each other. We can enjoy what we have. And he loves that because his biggest value is freedom. He knows there's no leash for him. And he's not going anywhere because of it. But it takes a certain kind of woman that I'm so grounded and so confident in myself, and I have so much going on in my own life where the certain things that would be a problem for another woman, with the same man, it would be such a challenge. It's not a problem at all. And that is how it naturally works. This is just one example of different in complementary or not. I can also go with the flow and change things at the last minute or say, okay, now I don't have to go on this date. I can work on my business. Great.
Well, wouldn't you agree that there are certain deal breakers in a person's personality, certain dark areas that this person's not headed north, south, east, or west? They're in their own little direction of not being relationship ready at all until they get something fixed. What would some of those deal breakers be?
Absolutely very extreme. So what I'm just talking about inherent differences, how somebody is a planner and somebody is a last minute person. And it's actually driven by their personality type. It doesn't mean that they don't respect you or that's just how they are. My husband will complete his most challenging cases at the last minute and he will win every time. He's just that way. Somebody else will plan months ahead and do a little bit every day. There's a completely different type. So it's not right or wrong. And of course, there are deal breakers that you want to decide for yourself. We're talking about extreme expression. If somebody always cancels or not reliable or they're so rigid that if you don't make plans with them, it can be extreme of every type. North can be very, very rigid. They cannot have that flexibility. It could be a real challenge for them. They have to do it a certain way. They have to have dinner every night at 6 o'clock. And if it's not served, it's going to be a problem. So imagine when you are not as rigid, right? And you kind of go with a flow. It's going to create challenges. And that is exactly why people will say, well, relationships require hard work. And my message is absolutely not. Relationships are easy when you choose a compatible partner who is right for you. And I'm not talking about Mr. Right. I'm talking about the person who is objectively just different and complementary from you, and it naturally works.
Fantastic. I think that's just great. It's a completely refreshing way to look at this. The longer my tenure is as a dating and relationship consultant, or whatever you want to call me nowadays, the more I realize there is such bad hand-me-down advice. These ways of looking at things in the dating and relationship world that someone thought of, dreamed up decades ago, that people have just always assumed are true without giving any further thought to it. And this whole idea of Mr. Right and soulmates, I mean, I guess at one level it sounds really romantic to assume that's the way things are, but it just doesn't align with reality. What you're talking about is so much more objectively factual with regard to how men and women really actually in the real world find each other and succeed in relating to each other long-term where others fail. So I'm so glad that you brought that perspective here today, and I think it's just fantastic. Gentlemen, I want to point you to Polina Solda's website, which is, logically enough, how north of her, polinasolda.com. But in this specific case, we're going to send you to a subfolder, which is /LBD pyramid. So you guys can actually go, as always, to mountaintoppodcast.com /pyramid. Now, Polina, we haven't mentioned the word pyramid yet in this podcast. So what are they going to find when they get there? And how does it relate to all this?
Before I share it, I just want to acknowledge, Scott, that you are such a sharp and quick learner. You are so witty and smart. I just love the comment you made that is so north of you. You literally picked up on the language that I use all the time, whether it's with my husband who knows everything, all about Enyo style and himself, and all of my clients. I will say, oh, that is so east of you, or that is so north of you. That was really cool.
Well, at least our relationship together as friends isn't going south anytime soon.
South is all about
See,
love.
guys, I've been telling you, women love me. It just, you guys have to get these skills in your life and make women love you too. I'm telling you, it's not magic. It's all, well, it's all exactly what you've been talking about for the better part of 45 minutes there, Polina. Yeah.
You just learn each other's language, which is why I love Enyo style, is of course because you get to speak each other's language and really understand what matters.
Which is good because Russian is incredibly hard to learn for English speakers.
Right. So this is a whole language in itself, and you can understand another person.
It's a lot easier this way.
Even better than they understand themselves. So when when I'm on a date and my husband starts talking about something, and then all of a sudden he starts talking about something else, and then he stops and he's like, I don't know why I just was talking about this and now I'm talking about that.
Well, that's because you're New Yorkers, Polina. That's how it works over there. It's because Texans and Californians crazy.
It's because, and I sit there in my very grounded, very confident way and say, it's because you're an East type and you have all these ideas in your head and they just come and go. I totally get it. Don't worry. You were talking about this. And that works. I'm very grounded. I'm very here and now. He's all out there. And I am fascinated by what is the next thing he's going to say, because I never know what he's going to say next. And that is just the beauty of this relationship. So it's absolutely possible for everyone. I have a gift called Love by Design Pyramid, and that is my tool that I teach all of my clients, and it can work for anyone, where in a few simple steps, you can go from no dates and having no options right now all the way to a relationship with a person who is right for you in a few simple steps. And exactly the one tool, the one and only tool that I use in my work. It's very simple. It's very powerful. And of course, you can listen to my podcast, Find the Right Man, that is specifically for women, or you can connect with me on my website.
I think all that's fantastic. The only thing you can't do using your tool is go from east to west, I presume.
You we do not change our type. We inherently have those strengths. However,
can you go coast to coast, if not east to west?
We can develop those skills.
Or cross country.
Better yet, find a partner who is your dual partner. If you're west, find your east person. If you're east, find your west person. You're going to have the easiest, most incredible relationship you couldn't even imagine. It's going to be so good. I promise.
Well, I'm having a lot of fun with this just because I like to make you laugh, but I think it's dead seriously cool. And not only brings a lot of new ideas to the table, but definitely complements everything we've ever talked about around here. So just terrific. Guys, go to mountaintoppodcast.com/pyramid and get you some. And, Polina Solda, I don't know why it took me 5 more years to get you back on the show, because you're just a delight as always. And I've done summits for you and podcasts for you. And my wife, Emily, and I have appeared together on your online events and everything. So we should do this more often. Thank you so much for joining us again today. It's been just fantastic.
Thank you so much, Scott. And thank you all the listeners. It's such a joy and pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, likewise. Gentlemen, if you have not been to mountaintoppodcast.com lately, go there and check out the master classes for men. We produce a new one every month where we cover every angle on a very specific topic on being a better man and getting better with women. Check out the full catalog of master classes for men that's there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. And guys, I have a bunch of new giveaways at mountaintoppodcast.com, including free downloads, free ebooks. You can also check out our sponsors, Origin in Maine, Heroes Soap, and the Keyport while you're there. When you partake of any of the fine goods from any or all of our sponsors, please use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 to get an extra 10% off. And don't forget, guys, I'm here for you always. You can sign up at mountaintoppodcast.com to talk to me for free for 25 minutes. The first 25 minutes are always free of charge. And if we go a little bit longer talking about where you are right now and what your plans are to make the most of your world, the most of your reality, and to invite beautiful women into that reality, hey, we'll take the time we need to put that plan together. All of that and more is there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.